Welcome back to the Out of Bounds podcast. I am Gavin Williams alongside
Charlie Caleri.
And today we have a little bit different of an episode, but we're both really, really excited for this.
Yeah, it's like kind of a new idea. It's definitely our most opinionated episode we've had yet.
Yeah.
It's going to be a top 5, and we're going to be doing our favorite or best announcers and their calls of all time. Play-by-play guys.
Yeah, so, I can kick us right off. So, we're not doing order. We're going to go one for one. I'm going to say one, Charlie's going to go one, but we have 5 guys. We don't have an order. So we're just naming 5 guys.
It was way too hard to pick a top 5. You'll see with the 5 names that we each have respectively. 3 of them are actually the same, but we have different calls. They're all top 5 guys. And then we have an honorable mentions list, which we should get to before we get to the top 5s.
No, yeah, I agree.
And kicking off the honorable mentions list, we want to give a shout out to Al Michaels.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't make our top 5, either of our top 5s. But we thought that obviously with Sunday Night Football, how long he was there, all the Miracle on Ice. All-time guy, all-time play-by-play guy. And then another guy in the honorable mention list is his successor on Sunday Night Football, Mike Tirico, with all the calls that he's had. And Syracuse University, Mike Tirico, he talks about it a lot. What do you think about Mike?
I love Mike. Newhouse guy. He's great. Yeah, I love him on the Sunday night. I loved him when he was on Monday night. I've always liked Mike Tirico.
And people were pretty critical when he took over the Sunday night job, but he's done just as good of a job, maybe a little bit less, because Al Michaels is the epitome of greatness in
he's
Sunday
the reason
why
people turn on their TVs on Sunday night.
And Mike Tirico is doing just fine in that role. Ian Eagle was next on our list, and Brian Anderson. We'll group these guys in together. Both amazing college basketball announcers, NBA announcers.
Yep.
Just basketball in general. Ian Eagle dips into the NFL a little bit as well.
He does.
He has some good calls there. His son now, Noah Eagle, he could potentially
be on this list
in a few years, but
we'll see.
For right now, Noah Eagle's not done enough in our minds.
He's a Newhouse guy too.
We got to get some Jandoli guys on here.
Too many Newhouse guys.
We got to get some Jandoli guys on here, man. Next, we got some college football guys right here. What do you think about these two?
Yeah, we got Chris Fowler and Reese Davis. Both these guys, respective ESPN guys, and obviously, biggest game of the week, Chris Fowler's always got it.
Yeah, and then college football playoff, too. Those guys are calling all the games. They're both the announcers in the NCAA football game, the new one that came out this year, too. Those guys are great. Your guy that you wanted on this honorable mention list right here.
Yeah, I got Chris Berman on here. Boomer, he's a great egg. Obviously, great voice. And we don't hear for too much of him anymore. Obviously, he's getting old. Sometimes he'll dip into the NFL Network a little bit.
Huge Bills fan.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, definitely wanted to shout out Chris Berman here because of his legendary career.
Chris Berman picked the Bills, I think, every single Super Bowl that we lost. I think he picked them the year after, too, when we didn't get back there and the Chargers did. But thank you, Chris Berman. And then finishing out with some baseball, Michael Kay, who Yankees announcer, yes guy. Obviously for us growing up watching the Yankees. There goes Sia. What a guy. What an announcer. A lot of people hate him, and I can understand it from an outside perspective, but when he's calling your team, you got to love it, man. I pictured the Subway Series game where, I can't remember who it was, but he dropped the ball. Here comes Teixeira. And the Yankees, that's just hype, man. He knows how to feed into the crowd.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of these guys do well. And the last 2 guys, rest in peace to both of them. Older baseball. I was telling Gav before we press start here, they're both the best storytellers, I think, in baseball announcing history. Bob Uecker and Vin Scully. They both did it in different ways. Bob Uecker was more of a casual, sitting at a bar, kind of talking to a guy. That was Bob Uecker. And then if you want to go to a high-class establishment and have a bottle of wine or something, Vin Scully's your guy, man. He could tell you a story. And Vin Scully, if you don't know his stories, just listen to any Dodgers broadcast from the years of when they started basically to 2016, and he'll tell you a great story throughout all 9 innings. And I think those guys had to be on the honorable mentions list.
I'm going to throw one more out there, too. I think Vern Lundquist deserves to be on this list. Obviously, legendary, most famous golf announcer ever. So Vern Lundquist, I'm going to throw on that list as well.
Very true as well. Yeah, great call there, Gav. Now we're going to dip into our respective top 5s here. And Gav, do you want to kick it off with one of the guys that we have the same?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah, let's do it. So one of the guys we have the same, Jim Nantz, obviously. Great announcer, covers so many sports.
Everything.
And this is my favorite call from Jim Nantz.
But I take Can the receivers get far enough down the field? Rodgers in trouble. It's going to get there. He turned 32 yesterday. Does he have a vintage moment in him? In the end zone, it is caught for the win. Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. A game ender for the Packers.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is my favorite call,
That is
obviously.
a great call.
I mean, just turned 32 yesterday. Does he have a vintage moment in him? Let's just say he did have a vintage moment in him. And that's a very biased pick. My probably second favorite, but I think his best call is after the Tiger Roar on the 18th green of Augusta, after he clinched his 15th major, his last Masters jacket, and the return to glory.
The return to glory.
So
Wow.
there's my Jim Nance.
You gotta love Jim Nance. I mean, he covers everything football. I'm gonna cover some basketball here in a little bit. But yeah, Jim Nance does everything and he does it well. Like all these guys do, they tell a great story throughout the game. That's what separates the great announcers from the good ones. The ones that can let the crowd breathe, but also call the game and tell a story all at the same time. Those are the things you need to be a great announcer. Jim Nance got us all of those. And let's hear my favorite call from Jim Nance.
He had the hot hand from Sri in the first half. They're going to have to do something from the outside now. It's Page off balance. Puts it up. How did he do that? Ties the game with 4.7 seconds to go. How about that kid? 4.7 seconds. Villanova trying to go length of the court with Archie Diacono. 3 seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins for the championship. The national champions with Jenkins hitting the winner at the buzzer.
Wow. I mean, what a call. I mean, that's from the 2016 Villanova UNC championship. Marcus Page hitting the shot off balance, like Jim Nance said. You can get a visual in your head. That's the thing. And then Jenkins coming down the court, pass from Archie Diacono, underhanded. Jenkins for the championship. Bang. And like you were saying, Bill Raftery.
I mean, the Onions call. That's the best. That's the best.
That's why I had to throw it
Yeah,
in there. I mean, adding Bill Raftery in there. I mean, adding his little, onions. in there. It's amazing. Double orders sometimes. Jim Nance, Bill Raftery. They're a package duo. We
Yeah.
could do this again with color commentators if you guys want to. Bill Raftery could potentially be on
He
that
would
list.
be on that list.
But yeah, Jim Nance.
Yeah, another quick thing. We're both not including radio announcers. This is only on camera, on TV broadcast.
For games that we have watched live.
Yeah,
That's
and that was
also-
another thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was the
we
extra
had to
thing.
watch the game to have not only the announcer but their call on the list.
We thought that was only right.
Yeah,
And-
so
yeah.
for our next guy, probably this is an out of bounds tier 1 fella. I mean, this guy gets quoted more than anybody else in the history of being quoted. Gus Johnson. Gus Johnson's a legend. He covers a lot of sports just like Jim Nance on a little lower bit of a scale, but like Gus Johnson, if we had to make a collective number one, he'd probably be our number one.
Yeah, and obviously in the last few years he has toned it down. But even then, he's still a great announcer, calling Big East games weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it is now. But, I mean, it's just enough of my Gus Johnson fix that I need. Obviously, yeah, more energy when he was younger and younger in the game. And I think that's just how the game has evolved, unfortunately for him, and how, CBS has wanted him, Fox, whoever he works for, has wanted him to call
Tone
the
it
games.
down.
But, yeah, Gus Johnson, all-time guy, tier 1 guy, like you said, for Out of Bounds. And here's his best call.
And we're tied at 75 again. Isaiah, shot clock turned up. Game clock at 8. He's going to do it himself. Thomas, shake, crossover, step back. At the buzzer, Young, safe, and Washington wins it on a last-second J. Cold-blooded. Gus with
my favorite call from Gus Johnson. I mean, there's so many to pick from. That was really tough, but that was one of the first conference tournament games I've watched live. Young Zeke in Washington, Isaiah Thomas, like he said. I mean, cold-blooded. You can't hate anything about that call. He describes it perfectly. Cross, shake, or whatever it is. Shake, crossover, step back. Whatever he said. Gus Johnson is the best. Always bringing the energy back in the day, and just an iconic call.
Yeah, so now here's my call from Gus Johnson.
A child shall lead. Cameron Dicker from 40 yards away for University of Texas, Red River, immortality. Earthquake! He hit it! Dicker, the kicker, 48-45 Texas, with 9 seconds to go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that was one of the ones where I was locked into that game. Red River, Oklahoma, Texas, and I loved how much he let it breathe. He let you hear the noise.
You hear the crowd pop.
And then earthquake. And then I had no idea who the kicker for Texas was until I heard Dicker, the kicker.
Goes on to be one of the better NFL kickers the next year as well.
Exactly. So I mean, that's all-time legendary call.
Kind of a shocking call that you picked, honestly, though. I mean, there's a lot to choose from, like we said, and we're choosing calls from games that we saw live. But, I mean, like we talked about, Brandon Stokely down the sideline. Can they catch him? You got barbecue back there. You didn't invite me.
That's my honorable mention call.
He's got getting away from the cops speed. I mean, so many to mention, man, from Gus Johnson. He's always got those one-liners in his back pocket. And, I mean, honestly, if we did have to pick a number one guy, this does seem like the guy that we would choose.
He'd be the consensus.
Because, I mean, I have the most fun talking about Gus Johnson, honestly. He just brings us joy.
He's the electric guy that we all need in life.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, he's the best. Moving on to another guy who we both have on our list, who is more pigeonholed than Gus Johnson. He's more just into the NBA realm, but he excels at it. He's one of the best to ever do it. Another guy that should have been on the honorable mentions list was Marv Albert, who had the job before him. Called a lot of Eastern Conference games. This guy called a lot of Western Conference games. Now has moved into both. Mike Breen. Let's hear his best call.
James catches, puts up the three. Won't go. Rebound Bosch. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining. Unbelievable.
This is probably the first. I mean, what a call, by the way, first of all. But this is probably the first finals that I watched the whole series of. And it coming down to that in Game 6, you thought the Spurs were going to pull it out, finally take down again, because the Mavs did it the year before, take down the Heat again. You thought they were just going to be kind of one of those super teams that never got it together. Ray Allen hits that shot, saves LeBron's legacy, D-Wade's legacy, gets Chris Bosh a ring in Game 7 eventually. And all the fans coming back into the arena, just that whole moment, him saying bang, the crowd pop, James catches, won't go. I mean, it's just the best, man. I don't know.
That's probably his most known call of all time.
It probably is, but it is my favorite because it just paints a great picture of what the scene was.
Oh yeah,
you can just feel it. You can tell what's going on. It's just Mike Breen's the best.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm going to go into my Mike Breen call right now.
4 seconds to go. Miss free throw. Call for the rebound. Here's Pritchard. He loves these. Puts it up half court of the buzzer. Bang! Pritchard at the buzzer with a three-pointer. He's done it again.
I mean, and what could be and has been up there is one of my favorite days of my entire life. I had to throw in the Peyton Pritchard buzzer beater before the half. Might be one of my first half bangs I've ever heard in my life. Obviously, Peyton Pritchard, a Boston Celtic. This is a very biased pick, but in the NBA Finals, when you're locked in and like you're playing the Mavs against Luka, Game 5 at home to wrap it all up, being up by almost 20 at half, that was my favorite call of all time. And I was screaming bang with him when he did that. So definitely, Mike Breen, thank you for that. Love you for that. Go Seas.
Definitely a great call. Definitely a great shot. I don't know if I agree with you, but it is your favorite call, so I can't dispute that, obviously. But Mike Breen, just go watch a compilation of Mike Breen calls. I was gonna choose the I was gonna choose the Curry play against OKC because I was watching that game. That was one of the first double bangs I think I've heard. I think the first one I think I've heard live, and just unreal. Mike Breen, what he does every year. The only call that he's ever messed up was your team, the Boston Celtics.
That actually was one of the ones that was in contention because I still love that call.
So Jason Tatum had a buzzer beater, spun around, and Mike Breen said the game was tied. They actually won it at the buzzer in a playoff game. He said
Game 1 against the Nets on Easter.
Botched the call. He says he still regrets it to this day. What a great story, by the way, too.
Yeah. One of my the honorable mention I had. Obviously, he has a ton of legendary ones, but honorable mention for favorite was Jaylen Brown's double bang against the Pacers in game 1 game 1 when we were down with 7 seconds. Miracle, absolute miracle in TD Garden. So that's a good one too.
All right, so moving on now to we're gonna split here. I'm gonna have two guys. You're gonna have two guys here. And the first guy I have does a lot, but what I have here is an NFL call, and I just want to say. Before I play this guy is awesome because he just has fun with the game. Every call that he has, every time that he calls a game, he just pulls up something fun, some fun anecdote, something. But one of my favorite moments is when during COVID, this guy had to call 2 games at one time because he was slated to call the 1 o'clock game and the 4 o'clock game at his house because it was remote at the time. For I think it was the Patriots-Dolphins game, and then the Chiefs and Broncos were playing another game, and he was tasked to do both. And they both scored at the same time, I think, game winners or something like that. And just that was an unreal call. That was going to be my honorable mention. But instead, I got this for Mr. Kevin Harlan.
Run out on the field. Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms. Bare-chested. Somebody stop that man.
Here comes the blue coat,
Oh,
Kevin.
they got him.
Here
They're
comes the
coming
blue
from the
coats.
left. Oh, and they tackle him at the 40-yard line.
I mean, if you couldn't see that in your head, I don't know what's wrong with you. Kevin Harlan, I mean, from a guy streaking on the field, he made that the most exciting play of the game. That was a real-life Monday Night Football game on ESPN that Kevin Harlan did that on. Amazing that he did that, first of all. I don't know if that would slide in today's world, but the fact that he was going along with it when the cameras couldn't show it, letting us know what's going on at home, all-time announcer, top 5 for me, and I had to throw him in there.
Yeah, Kevin Harlan's on my honorable mention, probably number 6. But this next guy I'm going to go into is who I think is the greatest collective, not team-oriented, collective hockey announcer of all time. And this is the legend, Doc Emrick, with my favorite call from his entire career.
Off the tie-up, Fair nudges one along, stepping to an Ulster, banged one through, and it goes back down, and another icing. Barry Trotz, the coach of the Capitals this morning, said the same thing that Alain Vigneault said. If you leave it all out there on a 7th game, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Sad that someone must lose this, but it's all a part of the sport. But they are devoting all their energy to this game, both teams. Off the tie-up, it is Fair, but it came back to Yandel. Drive by Girardi to save. Girardi scores! Step on! In overtime, the Rangers move on to Tampa.
Yeah,
Wow.
I had to let that one breathe.
And you know, again, sorry, let me jump in here real quick. I know you do have a lot of biased things on your list, but that was the right pick.
Yeah.
That was the right pick right there. I mean, that whole thing right there by the Barry Trotz quote. I mean, the Rangers were down 3-1 in the series
They were.
as well.
They were.
Came down all the way back. won Game 5 and Game 7 at home in overtime. Both of them, I think.
Yeah. Marion Gabrick had the one in Washington.
And just the fact
I think that was a triple overtime.
and just
as well.
the fact that he said that quote right before and said it's a shame that one of these teams has to go home, and the Capitals went home right after that. It was perfect.
No, yeah. I mean, that's probably my favorite hockey shot of all time. I'll put that out there right there. Favorite hockey shot, moment, call of all time. That one was just amazing. Just absolutely amazing. It leaves me speechless, honestly, just because I felt like I just relived that moment. And I know Rangers fans out there, CFO including you, relived that moment as we heard that undress. And I mean, Derek Stepan, Rangers legend, Game 7, overtime. How else to better put it than that?
They move on to Tampa.
And then in my honorable mentions, I have a couple. I mean, obviously, Patrick Kane, his game winner in the Stanley Cup in overtime. Then we have, I mean, one I hate the most, but I mean, Martinez, I mean, that is a fantastic call in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
It is.
Or final against the New York Rangers.
That was the year before, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so, I mean, you have another, I want you to get into your last guy right now, too, because I think that ties in very well.
Yeah, so the guy, obviously Doc Emmerich, my favorite collective, but the guy I wish I heard the call from live was the man I'm going to mention now. You cannot mention hockey without Sam Rosen, and he's the greatest team announcer of all time. I'll put it right out there because I know who Charlie's got next as well. Sam Rosen, legend, so sad since last year in the blue shirts and the Garden. It's tough to see, but one of the greats with one of his great calls.
Fox shoots, blocked in front, and cleared. Shesterkin out to get it. Fox with it. 40 seconds to go in the power play. In overtime. Here comes Zibanejad. He shoots, deflected behind the net wide. Round the boards to Panarin. Out to Fox. Zibanejad. Checked by Bluger. Fox with it. Down to Zibanejad. Zibanejad across to Panarin. Panarin controlling, feeds Fox. Now Panarin moves in. He shoots. He scores! He scores! Rangers! Rangers! Rangers win! At 4:46 of overtime, Artemi Panarin hits a power play goal, and the Rangers win.
I mean, I let that one breathe too. That was just a couple years ago against the Penguins in round 1, Game 7, overtime again. And the reason why I let that play so long is because if you've ever watched a game with Sam Rosen, if there's a power play goal, you know, he has his signature. It's a power play goal. But obviously I was not around for the 94 year because those are my favorite calls of all time. But I wasn't alive, and I didn't watch it live. This was the one I watched live. I know I have tons of favorites. It was tough to nail down just one. But when you say Rangers win, tell me that doesn't get you turned up. And Sam Rosen, my favorite announcer of all time across all sports. That is the reason. And he is a legendary sports caller.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to stay in the same ballpark here. A little bit of a parallel for me. I'm going to go with Rick Jeanneret, and I know what the CFO is saying right now. I'm going to give a personal message right here. The only source of personal, and I just want this to put this into perspective for everybody here. The only personal hockey joy I had as a kid came from Rick Jeanneret. Not from the team, from the announcer. He was the only one that gave us hope when there was no hope, okay? And it was really tough to pick a call from Rick Jeanneret from a game that I've seen live that I wanted to pick. But I got one, nailed one down. Most of the calls that he had that are more iconic are from before my time when I was watching, before when the Sabres cared and when they were good. But player that I hold near and dear to my heart scored this goal on a call that I hold near and dear to my heart.
For Vanek. Vanek tried to roll it back, but it's going to go out over the blue line. Vanek gets it again and brings it right back in for Buffalo. Here's Vanek walking in on goal. He scores! Thomas Vanek! Oh my, what a goal! Vanek just turned everybody inside out, upside down, and bingo! And Buffalo wins it in overtime!
Just an iconic guy. Rest in peace, Rick Jeanneret, first of all. Iconic call from an iconic announcer in Buffalo, from Mississauga, or St. Catharines area, came down to Buffalo in 1970, started calling games for the team when they started. And, you know, as always, when the Sabres scored a goal in OT, it was iconic. There was a lot to choose from, a lot of overtime goals, you know, top shelf where Mama hides the cookies, rolled the highlight film, the Karuba collision, all the fights with Patrick Coletta, so many iconic moments from Rick Jeanneret, but nailed that one down with my guy Thomas Vanek, who, if you don't know, go watch some Thomas Vanek highlights. He was silky back in the day,
Silky.
the Austrian legend, yeah, I mean, two guys that should get more recognition, especially Mr. Rick Jeanneret. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, RJ. Your banner is in the Raptors for a reason in KeyBank Center. And thank you for everything, Rick.
All right. Well, that ends the top 5, the honorable mentions for play-by-play broadcast announcers for sports.
Yes, something like that. Hope you guys enjoyed our calls as well. Let us know if you have any other announcers or calls that you enjoy yourself.
Shoot them in the comments.
Shoot them in the comments. Let us know on our Instagram.
At Out of Bounds Podcast with a dot between every single word.
Let us know if you guys like these kind of formatted videos. We might do this with color commentators. We could do this in another kind of fashion as well with specific teams or sports or something like that. Let us know, please. We love the feedback.
Absolutely.
And, Gab, you got anything?
I mean, hockey's a great sport. Football's a great sport. We covered a lot of sports here.
We didn't cover baseball at all today, and I did say baseball, I think most of my favorite calls evolved from baseball just because of the suspense that takes place when a ball is hit. You know, everybody's looking at it in the air. You know what's going to happen. The crowd pop when the ball hits the bat. Nothing like a walk-off in baseball, but didn't get any October moments in here this time around, but maybe that's a video in the future.
Yeah, maybe we'll go nice little B list next time. We'll see. We'll see.
Let's do it. But thank you guys for listening. Let us know if you want to see something new. Check us out on our Instagram. And thank you guys. Have a day.
Have a day.